What is going on, Sports Wars? We're here. We're live from Monday Evening Quarterback after what very well may be the best divisional round of the playoffs that we have ever seen, maybe in history. Maybe that's an overreaction. But when you have 3 games that end on last-second field goals and then another one that ends on a walk-off touchdown in the last 2 minutes of that game, which may have been the greatest we've ever seen, I don't know if it's an over-exaggeration. NFL was crazy this week, and I'm glad we're here to talk about it. Jeremy, how are you doing?
I am doing good. Doing good because we got a special guest with us. Might as well go ahead and add him on in.
We do, and I'm really interested to hear his take on this weekend as well. We've got returning Robert Barnes. What's up, brother?
Hey. How you doing, my friend?
That was a probably the best weekend of division NFL playoffs in history by far.
It was crazy, and I was just gonna say, when we just got started, I was gonna say, so sadly I missed. I was trying to watch the Buffalo Chiefs game, but I was hosting a Mario Kart stream, so I'm watching it, but it happened so fast I couldn't really process what was going on because I'm hosting the stream, and I look up and the score just keeps changing every time a race ends. The score, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it was crazy. Obviously the first game though, the Rams and the Buccaneers was just there's no excuse. The Buccaneers had every chance. That they tried to give them that game. They tried, and no excuses. The Rams were the better team, even though they didn't look like the better team in the second half. They were the better team. Tampa Bay just couldn't pull it together. But the highlights, I went back and watched the highlights of this Chiefs-Bills game, and truly incredible. And I got to say, seeing Mahomes have his entire team around him and for him to just like run out of that to go find Josh Allen to congratulate him was one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time. Those two guys, along with Joe Burrow, Herbert, that's the future of the NFL right there. I mean, those guys are going to be battling for years to come. That was great to see.
Yeah, and I think Jones will be part of that for the New England once he gets going. There's definitely a lot of young, promising quarterbacks. But yeah, all 4 games came down to literally the very last play of the game, an overtime game to finish it all in the craziest last 2 minutes of a playoff game I've ever seen.
Yeah, maybe any game, to be honest.
I'm trying to think of a game that was that crazy within the last 2 minutes. I mean, you had Frank Reich's great comeback for the Buffalo Bills. One of those Trivial Pursuit questions. I mean, I think Brady might have broken the record, but at the time, Frank Reich was the backup quarterback for Maryland when they had the biggest comeback in the history of college football. And then he was the backup quarterback for the Bills with what was then the biggest comeback in the history of the NFL playoffs. But outside of some of those crazy games, that was just wild. And it was just great, mostly great games. Really, the only game that the wrong team won was really the 49ers. The special team debacle of the Packers gave
your boy choked. Robert, your boy choked. I'm sure you saw my video, so I went in hard.
Rodgers' the whole thing has always been postseason. So in the end, when they've lost, they just don't score, and it happened again. I mean,
that tends to happen when you don't score.
Yeah, well, of course, exactly. But what was amazing is as much as the Packers had really been mediocre offensively, 49ers had been just awful offensively. They're pretty much the whole game.
Jimmy G is garbage. He's not garbage. He's a decent quarterback, but I'm just saying, he's gotten a ton of money. If he looked like Nick Foles, he wouldn't have the job. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
He's not a top tier quarterback.
How much those injuries are taking a toll? Because you look at him stat wise, he was having a good season until the injuries hit, and then whether that influences the deep passes that are just bad passes. He makes 2 or 3 really bad decisions each game for the last 4 or 5 games, and they've been dodging the bullet on him. But whether he can manage again, now they've had the Rams numbers, so that's the other factor there. But my preseason bet, in fact, we discussed it, one of the first Monday evening quarterbacks, my pick to win it all were the Rams, and now they get to play the last 2 games at home. If they win this one, then they get to play the Super Bowl at home. But still, what the Bucs forgot is there's the number 1 quarterback against the blitz this season was Matthew Stafford, and yet that's how they decide to bring a crazy blitz, leave their guy one-on-one with Cooper Kupp, of all the number 1 receiver in the league, and they give up a last second, which the only question is whether that defense was worse play calling or the Bills' greatly overrated defense because they had played such a soft schedule this year offensively. But still, I mean, 13 seconds left, and you let Patrick Mahomes go about 50 yards in 2 plays. I mean, wow.
I think that the decision to play like zero blitz from Todd Bowles is really stupid there. I think it's really stupid when you know that you can't let them get in field goal range. Like, that's it. You can't let them get in field goal range or they win this game. Very dumb. Now, Levante David did make a mistake, which Levante David does not make many mistakes. But Levante David did not blitz. Levante David had about a 2-second delay on his blitz, which I don't think he would have got to him. But at the same time, if you're running everybody go, and one of the guys doesn't go, that you lose your advantage there.
Yep.
So that was a big mistake. But why don't let's step through these games the way that we saw them play out. So let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals going to the AFC Championship for the first time in a long time after defeating the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee, they get Derrick Henry back. They ran him a lot, but he was not very effective against I wouldn't say a great Bengals defense, that's for sure, but Ryan Tannehill, a lot of people in Tennessee are now looking at him to blame for this loss, which I don't know if they're wrong. Threw a pick on his first pass, threw a pick on his last pass that set up that game-winning field goal. But, Robert, what are your thoughts on this game, how it played out, and how good Joe Burrow continues to look?
It was kind of a wild game. In fact, a lot of them were wild games because you had, statistically, I had all these player prop bets and a bunch to go over, and basically almost all hit the over, even though the game totals didn't match up, which was kind of a peculiar thing. I mean, Burrow went way over his total. Chase went over his total. T. Higgins went over his total. And then you look at the Titans. Both A.J. Brown and Julio Jones went over their receiving totals. Great pass by Tannehill to Brown to get the first touchdown to A.J.
Mm-hmm.
I think and especially Burrow gets sacked 9 times. I think Titans set a defensive record in that respect. But Burrow's Pro Football Focus's #1 rated QB this season for a reason. And if anything, he's been a little bit restrained by Zach Tyler, and he's unleashed him a little bit more each week during the second half of this part of the season. They already beat the Chiefs earlier in the year. It was a great game. Chiefs looked like they were going to dominate. Bengals came roaring back. And the Bengals kept, what's most impressive is usually first-year playoff quarterbacks on the road don't put up the numbers that Burrow did. That was impressive. That was just an extraordinary performance. But just money play after money play. Chase is just a rare talent. I mean, he just proves that over that first play that he took that should have been like 3 yards. He takes for 40 yards or whatever it is. So it was a great game back and forth, and it was a little bit of just a little bit of the luck of the draw. I mean, like that the latter interception that Tannehill threw was a tip pass deal, and the receiver probably should have made a better play on the ball. But then the Titans, making the decision to go for it earlier in the fourth quarter when they could have kicked a field goal at that point. So they made some interest. There were some gambles that just backfired on the Titans. But basically, it was a very tight game of two teams that really have been pretty even throughout the year. Titans were just finally healthy, but the home field didn't really end up mattering a whole lot in the divisional round. Is the reality of it. The 3 road teams won. The 4th road team almost won. But yeah, it was the Bengals proved, that Burrow's the real deal. I still have questions about their coach. I'm not as big. He may win Coach of the Year just because they overperformed, but expectations. But given that they have enough talent on that team, they have 2 of the better pass rushers in the league. They have 2 good corners. I mean, 2 corners that have sub 90 QB ratings against them. They're one of the few teams that have that, actually. And Reeder had a great game shutting down the run. That was the big question, was how they could handle that. They probably would have been better off playing Derrick Henry in the last game of the year and getting him a little bit more warmed up because, he looked physically fine, but
I think they went in
overconfident.
I think they went in overconfident just because Henry's return. I think they just went in way overconfident, lost their focus. But going back to Joe Burrow, this guy, he's playing with a shitty offensive line. He does.
Very bad. That right side is terrible.
got a ton of talent around him. Okay. And that has to be acknowledged. He definitely has a ton of talent around him, but this guy's proven it. You know, he proved it at LSU. And obviously just because you do it in college doesn't mean you translate to the NFL, but he has translated to the NFL. He looks like the same guy, and he's got ice water in his veins. And again, not even having a good O-line, he's still able to do what he's doing. I personally think Joe Burrow he's going to be the top quarterback in the league for the next decade. He's going to be that guy. Obviously, you need to have the right GM, the right decisions made from a front office level to keep the right talent around him. But I mean, in Cincinnati historically hasn't really shown to be that type of, organization. But I think they clearly are recreating the winning culture around there. But I think he is the future. Along, I said, there's many quarterbacks. There's several you can name in there, but I think he has the chance to be the top guy moving forward. But Cincinnati, to me, is the scariest team in the playoffs right now. They're the scariest team.
Yeah, I mean, and they can definitely take the lid off. I mean, it'll be a great game against Kansas City. Should be for all, often the championship games in the last decade plus haven't turned out to be that competitive frequently. The more than half the time the favorite wins comfortably. But a lot of those favorites were teams like New England with Tom Brady and Belichick combined.
Yeah. So, I think with the way the Chiefs score and the way they're going to keep giving the ball back to Cincinnati and the way that Cincinnati can move the ball between their two wideouts and Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow, I can't wait for that rematch. Tight one. Ended on a last-second field goal. It was week 16 or 17 of the regular season where we saw that. Joe Burrow, to me, he took a ton of sacks. That offensive line's bad. However, sometimes that's the right thing to do. Sometimes taking a sack is the right thing to do instead of what you see Kyler Murray, what you see some of these guys do. Carson Wentz very often this season try to do everything to avoid a sack. He'd throw a ball up for grabs or shuffle one in front of him to try to not take a sack.
Garoppolo just throwing the ball into the middle of four guys rather than just take the sack.
Exactly. And, for some offenses, if you do take a sack and it's 2nd and 18, you are in trouble. That's a big deal. That's not the case with this Bengals team because of the chunk plays that they can pick up and because I think the confidence they have in moving the ball and, throwing out to T. Higgins and throwing out to Jamar Chase. So, they definitely need to protect this man long term. We already seen him get a torn ACL. 9 sacks is a lot. But at the same time, I think they're built to withstand that. And same way we kind of saw Andrew Luck in the Colts. Andrew Luck used to take a lot of sacks, but that offense would continue to move the ball downfield. I think you're seeing a similar thing with this team. Didn't end well for Andrew Luck, though. Did not end well for Andrew Luck injury-wise. Important to note. But that game's crazy, and that sets up for a very interesting rematch for sure.
Now are both? I think we confirmed that both games are on Sunday, right?
Yeah, both games on Sunday. I believe at 3 Eastern and 6:30 Eastern. So the same time.
Divisional rounds. They did the divisional round like their traditional championship games, which I thought was good. Allowed everybody to really get into the game. Noon on the West Coast start time, and so that should be fun. And that was a heck of a way to a game to start and looked at various points back and forth, and then the Packers game, which started out decent. And then just kind of regressed into just a bad game.
It really did. Because it seemed like Green Bay was just Green Bay comes out guns a-blazing, and it was like, oh man, this is going to be 35-10,
I think Garoppolo started out like 0 for 8 or something ridiculously atrocious.
Yeah, he's like 2 for 9 at one point or something like that. Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah, like 17 yards passing or something receiving.
But Green Bay continued to allow them to stay in the game. You know what I mean? Obviously, big special teams plays here. You had the blocked field goal that could have made it, I think, 10-0 going into half. That's a big play for San Francisco to get momentum-wise, knowing that they get the ball as well. And then, obviously, the block punt for a touchdown was massive and huge. But
they won the game without scoring a single offensive touchdown. It was like it was LSU Alabama 7 years ago or something.
Yeah, they did. But Aaron Rodgers is now at the focal point for a variety of reasons. One, obviously, because the mainstream media, although they've loved Aaron Rodgers for the past 15 years, now hate him because how dare he not get a jab. But for Aaron Rodgers once again in the playoffs, once again versus the 49ers to come up small like this, in the biggest moments, this guy comes up small in the playoffs.
Especially against the 49ers. This was who he wanted to be drafted. He said they were going to regret not drafting him. And they probably still regret not drafting him, but they're 4-0 against him in the playoffs. And they were the biggest favorite of the weekend. And I didn't find the play calling in general really all that impressive. The 49ers were going to be able to do good handling the run. AJ Dillon did go out and got hurt, but that was only a small part of the game. Really, it was they just did not put the throttle down at key points offensively when they needed to. And it came back to bite them. Defense played really lights out, played great game all the way around. They'd not been a great run defense all year. They played very well in the run defensive game plan. I had the Deebo Samuel rushing over. I didn't get it until the very last run he got. So
won the game.
They were containing everybody well. I had Kittle over, and Kittle was doing great, even though he dropped an early big pass that would have been a big gain.
Yes, he did. And didn't he drop two? Didn't he drop two big passes? I know he dropped that one over the middle, which was it slightly behind him? Yeah, but it was in his hands. He should have caught that one.
If it would have been,
if it was a little bit, in front of him, then it probably would have. It could have been a touchdown, but obviously it's thrown a little bit behind him. But he should have pulled that one in.
It's not like one of the ones where he had to reach behind him. It hit him like right here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He's running this way and it hits him right here
because he was too open. Yeah, he could sense how open he was, and he was starting to turn to run before he made sure he caught the ball. Yeah, and he's one of the great all-time tight ends. And but ultimately, I mean, to Garoppolo's credit, for all the mistakes he's made and sort of subpar play he's had at times this year, when the money is on the line, he tends to play very well down the stretch. He did it against the Rams to get into the playoffs. And then he did it against. I mean, when they had to have that last drive. They put together that last drive. And so that's to his credit. I still think the injuries are taking a toll on him. I think there's certain throws he's just not accurate with, and he's trying to compensate by gambling. And luck he's managed to dodge the bullet several times now. We'll see if he can dodge it again against the Rams. But what should be one of the greatest home fields in all of pro football has not been that way under Aaron Rodgers in the postseason. This is third, fourth time he's lost the big game at home. Lost to the Giants, lost, of course, Tampa Bay last year. Why
do you think, as a Tampa Bay person, as a Green Bay guy, like, why is that? Because look, we can, I can sit here and rant about Aaron Rodgers being overrated. That's more of a media thing. Me going after the media. Aaron Rodgers is a fantastic quarterback. His talent is next level. Yeah. He does things that no other quarterback has ever done, and he does. I mean, his touchdown to interception ratio is never going to be matched. There's never going to be a quarterback that probably matches that. He is so far ahead of second place. The guys can do incredible things, but he really does come up short in the playoffs. Do you have a theory as to why you think that happens with him?
I think there's two different things. I mean, I was a skeptic actually of Rodgers coming out because he came out from the Cal system, which had a long litany of quarterback bust under that particular offensive coordinator, whether he had been at Cal or Oregon before that. Other people go back to Joey Harrington, Akiri, a long list of players. And I saw his first ever game. I was at the Packers game when he came in when Favre got hurt against the New England Patriots, and he looked awful. Then he got going, and he has one of the quickest releases and most accurate passes physically in the game. Is a good a runner. But early on in his career, if he didn't have a lead at halftime, he tended not to be a comeback quarterback. And what I think it shows is it's actually the reason the interception rate is so low in the postseason too. I think he doesn't take enough chances in the postseason. And the defenses adjust. Defenses are very aggressive. They're going to throw things at you. And late in that game, like he missed the key pass to Devontae Adams when Adams had beat him, which could have ended the game if he hits that pass. I think he pulled the trigger a little bit off of it because he just makes sure that there's not going to be a pick. And he gets a little conservative and cautious, like in the last one where he effectively took a sack, where he just needs to be more aggressive. And what you see with guys like Tom Brady, what you see with Brett Favre, what you saw with some of these postseason quarterbacks that were Joe Montana, they would be more aggressive and more confident in the postseason than they were even in the regular season.
They got to trust their guys. Like you see them trusting guys that aren't their guys. Tom Brady, despite how bad he did play in the first half and despite some really bad play from his wide receivers, he knows he had to continue to go back to them. You can't just go to Evans every time. You can't just go to Gronk every time. You have to let Scotty Miller get involved. You got to let other guys get involved. And that's what we saw with Tom Brady, what allowed him to come back. When you look at what Aaron Rodgers did, he completed one pass that was not to Devontae Adams or to Aaron Jones out of the backfield. One pass all night. And we talk a lot about Aaron Rodgers, how efficient he is, how he doesn't throw picks. He knows that. He knows that that's like the narrative surrounding him, and he's scared to death to throw interceptions. Now, yeah, you shouldn't throw picks. We know that's not a key to success, throwing interceptions. But at the same time, like you said, Robert, you have to be able to trust guys. You have to be able to accept a certain amount of risk in these big moments. And
yeah. I mean, I think it's like a guy like Garoppolo, who's not nearly as talented as Rodgers, has been better in the postseason. I mean, you saw it down. I mean, because those gambles that can be, can backfire, but he's fearless about them. And consequently, he has made key plays at key points to get him into the playoffs against the Rams in that last 2-minute drive. And then last drive that, I mean, I almost knew it. As soon as they got the ball back, it's like 49ers are going to go down and score. They got one of the greatest kickers in all of pro football, who's been kicking in cold weather, long time Bears.
Fuck the Bears for letting Robbie Gould go because you didn't want to pay him. I'm so happy that Robbie Gould is the one that knocked the Packers' ass out of the playoffs. So happy about that. Fucking Chicago.
Yes, especially as a Bears fan, it's a double whammy. Well, it's like, think about all the people that ragged the Bengals during the draft when they drafted that kicker as high as they did. Well, the guy was money in the bank. So it turned out, that's why you draft a kicker is for when you special teams matters. And the Packers made the mistake. Their special teams have been awful all year long, and they did nothing to fix it. And what's amazing is the coach is like, man, I'm worried about my special teams coming into the game. Well, maybe have a better game plan then or something. I mean, or maybe fix it before you get to the playoffs. But also it's going to be a real mark on that coach. Because for all of the hype and the regular season success, this is twice now he's lost at home in the playoffs with an MVP candidate at quarterback.
It's not good. And I mean, number one seed, the MVP of the league, cold weather, which is right up your alley. That should not have been a negative for Green Bay. It should have been a huge negative for San Francisco. And here we are. It's a really, I think that was easily the most disappointing loss performance of the entire weekend was Green Bay's performance. I mean, there was just no excuse for that at all, and really disappointing. And I think there's, and I think I don't know if Ryan wants to get into it right now or whatever, but the future of Aaron Rodgers. You want to talk about that, Ryan, right now? Just to kind of speculate on that. I mean,
absolutely. Green Bay's sitting here. When it comes to the future of Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay is sitting here projected to be around $40 to $50 million over the salary cap next year because they have sacrificed everything. They've sacrificed their future to make sure to keep this team together, to keep Aaron Rodgers happy. Because as we know, Aaron Rodgers is very much made sure everybody knew that he didn't feel like he had enough, that he didn't feel like this team was giving him enough this offseason. Now he's making comments immediately after the game about, I don't want to be part of a rebuild. I don't want to hang around for anything like that. I mean, I can't see him staying there necessarily with everything that went down. I think him and Davante Adams try to go somewhere together based on their preseason comments about The Last Dance. But I don't know, Robert, as a Green Bay guy, what do you think the future of Aaron Rodgers is?
I mean, if I was the Packers, I would go for one more year because you don't get many Aaron Rodgers, and they need to get him. He's the kind of quarterback who needs a second passing option, second receiving option to perform in the playoffs. That he's made clear he just doesn't have enough confidence past his number one guy, and if that breaks down, then the offense breaks down in the postseason because he doesn't take chances. So the way to counteract that is to get him the second receiving option that he's. What's interesting is toward the end of his career, they've treated him like they treated his predecessor, Brett Favre.
Mm-hmm.
For the last several years, Favre was in Green Bay. They wouldn't go out and get other receiving options for him. The offense continued to break down and didn't achieve as much as it could. And instead they put a big draft pick in Aaron Rodgers, just like they did with drafting a quarterback while Aaron Rodgers is up there. Because down deep, both of this guy and the 49ers head coach think they want a certain kind of athletic quarterback that I think is a mistake and is misguided. But if I was Packers, that's what I would do. I would go for one more hurrah with Rodgers and add a good top tier receiving option for him that he can have confidence in to go along with Davante Adams. Really, like a big good tight end, I think would be great for Rodgers up there in the Norris division. But if they're not going to do that, then Rodgers would, his best decision would be to go someplace else for a last year or two to win it. Because if he wants to be in that Elite 5 category, I mean, Brady's in his own category. But if you want to be in that next category with Drew Brees and Peyton Mannings and, all of the other great quarterbacks, you want to win a second title. And particularly you'd like to win a second title at a second place because so few guys have done that. Tom Brady,
Right.
Peyton Manning, a few.
Mm-hmm. But where, if you look at things like, where would he go? Because you don't want to go to the AFC, and a couple of the teams that are mentioned are AFC teams. Why would you want to go to the AFC right now? The NFC, but depending on what Brady does, and by the way, there's some comments out about Brady and what he made on his podcast that lend to the possibility that he go to Schefter's Twitter, Ryan, retweeted it. But so if Green Bay, I mean, if Tampa Bay opens up, I just don't know why you would want to go to the AFC. So it makes the question of do you want to go to Tampa Bay? Would you? Because I think staying in the NFC is the better decision for him. Because going to the AFC is turning into a gauntlet right now. I mean, it's a lot of competition in the AFC. So that's something to think about in terms of where he would go. But I don't think you want. Tampa Bay. I just feel like you're going to a place where you're just going to continue to be directly compared to Tom Brady. Do you really want that? You know what I mean? Do you really want that?
Well, I think he wants another Super Bowl is to cap off his career, as I think what he wants. I mean, he's always been a little bit peculiar in a certain sense in that how much he really cares about the game has never been super clear. That, he has kind of a carefree approach in a certain sort of mindset. So I don't know how much that motivates him, but I think the only thing that can motivate him to keep playing at this juncture is a Super Bowl. But I think he'll play wherever someone will give him enough talent in his mind to be able to pull off the Super Bowl, which would, with Godwin back with Evans, Tampa would have that if Brady's not there. And you have Bruce Arians, one of the great friendly coaches in the league. So you always have that. The Colts could be an interesting team to go to if they decide that Wentz is not the answer. Frank Reich's another great quarterback coach. I don't think San Francisco is going to open up, but I think there was part of him that would have loved to go back to San Francisco and finish up in San Francisco, his hometown, and the rest. And so all of that, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting to watch. I mean, he has been one of the great quarterbacks to ever watch play, but he was a guy that underachieved in the playoffs. That's just his MO. And if he wants to erase that, then he's got to be someplace where he has, in his mind, enough talent to do so. So that's who would be the opening possibility.
I think you've got a couple options. People have been talking about Denver for quite some time. Denver, which, they do have some weapons absolutely out there. And they were even competitive this year with absolute dog shit quarterbacks, to be honest with you. Yeah. Now they're looking for a new head coach, obviously, because Fangio's moving on. They'll also have a new ownership group, which will probably include either the Manning family or John Elway, competing groups there. Very interesting. You also have Tennessee. A lot of people brought this up yesterday. Tannehill, there's a lot of people don't want Tannehill there anymore. They've got weapons that Aaron Rodgers could go to. And also Miami. Now, would he go to Miami with the problems they've had? I don't know, but they do have a lot of salary cap space. They could potentially have enough to bring Devontae Adams along with him if they wanted. So
and Miami be a fun place to play, warmer weather environment, get to do all of that. So I think it'll be interesting. What Brady and Rodgers do is big because you've got two of the last great elite old school quarterbacks. Now that Breeze is gone and Manning is gone, the Roethlisberger is now gone. The last two really are Brady and Rodgers. And if those guys go, then it's back to it's a young man's game entirely.
It's a whole different league, and it feels like the league is changing. Really, like this past weekend feels like this could have been a complete shift for the league. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing because there's some really top-tier quarterback
talent. Any of these 8 teams winning a Super Bowl that played last week. Yeah. And that's not really been very commonplace. I mean, the New England's dominated so much on the AFC side, and usually the NFC has two or three teams that are competitive. But to have 8 deep with high-quality play across the board, and it showed up in the games. They were as competitive as they possibly could be.
Yeah. I don't even think there's a true favorite right now. Like, I think Kansas City's probably your odds-on favorite if you're just stepping over. They have the experience. Yeah. Obviously, they've had a Super Bowl. Mahomes is great, but there's
and the
all four of these teams.
Home field. Yeah. I think the future ratings right now is Chiefs first. I mean, the Rams actually were 12-1 just last week. They were, I was surprised at that. They were, 20-1 to start the season. And there was, Sean McVay is the real deal as a coach.
He is.
People should have appreciated that as they watched Jared Goff in Detroit. This is a guy who got to the Super Bowl and managed to be a favorite in the in the Super Bowl with Jared Goff up against Tom Brady and Belichick. That shows you how good McVay is. People judged him harshly because of the outcome of that game. He shouldn't have been in that game, and he should have been a 7-point underdog at least.
There is not a team like the Rams at home. It feels like a different universe. That stadium they built, it just on TV, it just feels big time. It feels like you're watching something on a next level. Go ahead.
And that'll be the key this week, because the last week of the season, 49ers fans filled out the stadium because it was a do or die game for the 49ers fans, and the Rams fans in LA are still relatively new, but they were really pumped for the Arizona game. So I expect a Ram crowd for this one. And then it'll be a Ram crowd for the Super Bowl if they get there. They came out what great game plan, just dominating Tampa Bay. Of course, when you saw it was 27-3, you figured Tampa's going to come back and score or tie the game because that's Tom Brady. And he did. He managed to do it. It was even when they were down 14 and they kept going down and then not converting fourth downs and go down, not convert a fourth down. But the Rams learned to fumble the ball over and over and over again.
There's something about Brady's presence. I do think it's the Jordan mentality. I think he psychs people out. I think people are over there. You cannot, literally every single person watching that game, when it was 27-3, every single person was thinking about 28-3. Everybody.
Yep.
The players on the field were thinking about it. And there's just something about the mentality that having Brady on the other side of the field mentally messes with the opposing team. There's no doubt that was in their minds. And that is part of it. When you win as many Super Bowls as this guy has, and when you've broke as many records, and you're the legend that he is, there's no doubt that goes a long way. And the same thing happened with Jordan, and it happens with Brady. It's just that defense towards the end just was so bad. That final play was so bad.
That was really just, in my view, poor play calling. They were
Todd Bowles,
on both sides of the ball, but and that definitely had a factor with Brady, because the Scotty Miller came on late. Johnson, made a play or two, but was struggling otherwise. But Brady, trusted him anyway and was able to get it back. And that's classic Bruce Arians at the end. 4th and 1, you're near the goal line. If you're the Rams, you're thinking Brady, whether it's Brady sneaking it or Brady throwing it. And what does he do? He runs, Fournette off tackle, and it totally caught the Rams by surprise, and he gets to walk right into the end zone. But
it was unfortunate. It's right. It was unfortunate that he walked into the end zone that quick. But in that spot, when you have to score a touchdown, it's not like you have the potential to, if we kick a field goal, we'll tie it and score a touchdown, we win it. You have to take that when it's open. And they left too much time on the clock. But at one point in this fourth quarter, the Rams, I'm highlighting it now, a 99.5% win probability. And Tom Brady came back.
I think the Falcons were
this game.
Weren't the Falcons 99.8%?
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. And they came back and they tied this game. With that being said, you have to, we're holding Aaron Rodgers to a certain standard. You got to hold Tom Brady to that standard too. You know what? Yeah, his offensive line play was dog shit, but he's the greatest of all time for a reason. He showed it at the end of the game why he's the greatest of all time. But the fact that they were so miserable in that first half. Now, guess what? They had a missed field goal kick. Missed field goal kick by Ryan Suckup. Is anybody blaming the special teams play for Tom Brady and the Buccaneers losing? No, they're not. Because Tom Brady is the greatest of all time, and you get held to a certain standard, and they didn't meet that standard. They almost had a miracle game, but it wasn't enough.
You even look, you can blame some of the receivers if you want, but there were passes that were just behind or not in the right spot, thrown by Brady. And if he's clearly throwing to he's under pressure and he's throwing to receivers that aren't, really that great at times, when he's going to his third and fourth options, you got to put the ball on the money. And these guys They weren't bringing it in. That's on him. He's not putting the ball in the right spot. It's just a tick off. But this is the standard that you got to be held to. It's on him. He's the reason they lost. And it sucks.
Yeah,
but it was awesome to watch the whole thing play out.
Well, the one thing Brady's always struggled with is when front fours can generate natural pressure. I mean, when the Giants beat him in the 2 Super Bowls, that's how. Yep. That's been his one limitation. And you have probably the greatest defensive player alive, beyond Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald is a freak, man.
Yeah.
There ain't nobody like him.
Von Miller coming off the edge.
Oh my gosh!
And then
he's getting back, and now he's getting back. Like now is like he looks like Von Miller from Denver several years ago. Like he is really good.
Well, you know why? Because he's not the main threat. You have to account for Aaron Donald in the middle, which then means that Von Miller nearly every single play is going to be one-on-one with an offensive line that's already suspect. So
very smart of the Rams to move Donald around. They found the weakest link on Tampa Bay's offensive line and repeatedly put Donald right on top of him. They didn't lock him into playing defensive tackle. He played end, I think, about a third of snaps, and he just beat the daylights out of that poor right tackle who was beat up. And of course, that's been the other weakness with Brady is when his tackles have been poor. When New England had offensive line injuries, that's when he would struggle. So it was basically a perfect storm. You have the number one pass rusher in the league, the number one corner in the league for the Rams, and Jalen Ramsey, and then you have weakness on your offensive line with injuries, and your number 2 money wide receiver is out, and your number 3 wide receiver decided to take a hike. and apparently he was busy trolling him on Twitter. It's like, why is that something to be proud of? I mean, if he'd been cut, okay, I get trolling him on Twitter. He walked off. He decided to flee and leave the team in the middle of the game.
I thought it was pretty funny from AB, but AB's he's a little insane person. He's a maniac, but it was pretty funny that he tweeted out that meme of him. Yeah,
but at least Dennis Rodman showed up to play. He didn't walk off the court.
Yeah, at least when they came to drag his ass back from Vegas, he actually came back. Unlike Antonio Brown. But this is a Rams team with what Sean McVay was able to do with Goff. Now he has a competent quarterback in Matthew Stafford, and I personally, I as a Bears fan who watched Matthew Stafford struggle a lot in his career with the Lions, I'm really glad that Matthew Stafford is on this team and getting this opportunity to play with an actual team. Him and Cooper Kupp have a great connection. Cooper Kupp is such a smart fucking football player in everything he does.
With OBJ, as he gets more, you're seeing the old OBJ. Now that because he's just one of those guys that's super competitive. I think he's been misread over the years. Randy Moss was the same way. Moss hated to play for a team that wasn't playing.
That's 4-12. Yeah. Like if you're on a Giants team that's 4-12, if you're Odell Beckham, then all that shit starts to come out. It starts to be a problem. When you're on a team that's doing all the right things, it's much easier, I think. Well, I guess you could say look at Antonio Brown, but
later issues with the Jacksonville, but he's been absolutely fine once he got to the Rams. And it's the difference. Look at the Packers never picked up a second guy. The Rams lose their number 2 guy in Robert Woods midseason. What do? They go out and get, just like they did everything they could to get Stafford to upgrade at quarterback. They go out and get OBJ, and now it's paying off because now with Big B underneath and with Akers healthy, though hopefully he'll learn not to. Akers doesn't have a history of fumbling. That was just, I think that was psychological at a certain point in the game.
He also has only played like 2 games this year. So he just might not be he's probably just not there where you would imagine a guy would be ready to take hits, throughout a season. So
exactly. But but that was a fantastic game. Another great. I thought that would be the best game. I mean, ended up being depending on which way. I said the biggest margin would be the Chiefs game, and it was the biggest margin, though it got to overtime to get there. But man, they better get Honey Badger back because they made Gabriel look like a hybrid of Randy Moss and Jerry Rice in that game. And I mean, I don't know how many touchdowns I could see where the corner fell down. I mean, it was like corner falls down, corner falls down.
Yeah, he ran a really good route to make him fall down on that 3rd touchdown he had, I think.
Yeah.
But even so, he got his hips going the wrong way and he tried to turn and he was gone and he literally fell down wide open.
But they couldn't defend the whole deep middle of the field. I was like, I mean, at one Honey Badger, and he went out right away. He went out the very first drive. Josh Allen's knee took out his head. So not many quarterbacks. It's like Cam Newton, who injured the defensive player when they run. But that was still the craziest. I mean, I had money on the Chiefs. That was my biggest bet of the week. I had a bunch of prop bets that all paid out, so things were good in that respect. But a lot of the totals went.
Look
wacko.
at the win. Look at the win probability.
Exactly.
Look at the win probability.
This is what I mean. So, as if you didn't watch this game, you just saw the final score. You might be like, "Oh, what a great game went to overtime." You have no idea what happened in this game. Let me pause Stephen A. Smith's dumbass real quick.
Well,
so, in the last, go ahead.
Sports books. If you're at the sports books, and depending on who you had money on, or if you had money on the total. It's 26-21. Bills are driving. Less than 2 minutes left. They are 4th and 4. Allen breaks 3 and manages to barely get the first down. But then Allen throws a bad screen pass when he's under pressure. It's 4th and 14. Minute 30 seconds left. So if you're an under better, you're thinking you're ready to cash. The Chiefs bet you're ready to cash. And all of a sudden, wide open wide receiver, touchdown. And so all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. And then of course, then the Chiefs go right down and score a touchdown. And so you're like, oh, wonderful. And it's still like only a minute, 48 seconds left. And what do the Bills do? They go right down and score a touchdown. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to lose this bet this way. I mean, even Joe Romo was Romo was sitting there. Was sitting there talking about, oh, this game is over with 13 seconds left. He's like, wow, what an amazing comeback for the Bills, and so on. He didn't think it was even possible. He wasn't even mentioning the idea that in 13 seconds they could drive the ball 50 yards to kick a 46-yard tying field goal. And then that's exactly what happened. And then the big mistake Josh Allen made, he picked the wrong side of the coin. Couldn't win the coin flip.
Yes, and now that's what everyone's talking about. Now everybody is talking about we have to change the playoff overtime rules because of this one game, right? Because of this one game, because of how it ended, people are now like, we need to change the rules, which I'm not a big fan of the NFL overtime rules necessarily. But you know what? It sucks that Josh Allen didn't get the ball back. But
I'm not a big fan of the NFL overtime rules either. But what I do think is it motivates teams to not play for overtime. It motivates teams to be a little more aggressive, to not be there. And again, it doesn't take away the problem that, yes, it does suck. Josh Allen literally just didn't get a chance to even try. But that's I think that it's designed to try to motivate teams to try to be a little more aggressive in those moments instead of going for the tie, going for the win. Hang on, Smith. So Boomer
Mahomes, because that's how Mahomes lost to Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Boomer. Daily Wire piece was great. So thank you, everybody. We've heard from so many people. That's sent Geeks and Gamers to another stratosphere, because that's blown up on Facebook, on YouTube. So shout out to the Daily Wire. You'll probably see us doing more stuff with them in the future. It's been great. So thank you, everybody.
Something called the Daily Wire should have a sports betting show.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be bad, or a sports show in general. They got Jonathan Isaac on a book deal. They got Allison Williams out there working with the Daily Wire.
I mean, they're getting in the entertainment business with Gina Carano.
I got something I'm going to talk to you about when this is over, Robert. So,
there we go.
Opportunities come my way, so I'll touch base with you after this.
That's right.
But that was because that was the perfect way to cap off the best ever divisional rounds of the playoffs. Was that last 2 minutes in Buffalo, where everybody's yes, oh my God, oh yes, oh my God, oh yes.
I messaged Jeremy because I said I'm gonna make a video when this ends, and then it goes to overtime, and he's like, I guess you're not gonna make one. And I sent him 2 thumbnails that I had made as I was watching the last 2 minutes. One was Mahomes screaming and Josh Allen looking like this, and the other was Josh Allen screaming and Mahomes looking like this. Because I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I wanted to be ready to make the video. And when you look at this last 2 minutes, you had 4 scores in the last 2 minutes of this game. 3 of them were touchdowns. 1 of them was a game-tying field goal. And it's the way that it happened. Like you said, Robert, they're on 4th down and 14, I think it was. They end up hitting Gabriel Davis in the back of the end zone for a touchdown, get the 2-point conversion to make it a 3-point game. And then less than 50 seconds, about a little over 50 seconds later, Tyreek Hill gets loose in that Bills secondary and just burns them all and waves goodbye because he knows no one's catching him, scores a touchdown. You're thinking, holy shit. Then the Bills march right back down and score with 13 seconds left. At that point in time, Kansas City, listen, they had two, right? They had 2 timeouts. They had 3 timeouts. So they can stop the clock. I have watched Matty Ice back before then people actually called him that when it actually fucking meant something, like his second season in the NFL. I watched him, score, like take them down, get them in field goal range with like 10 seconds on the clock one time. So I was thinking about that, but that would mean going to the corner. That's what he had to do back then. They had the middle of the field available to them. When you have those kind of weapons, when you have the kind of weapons like Kelsey and Hill and, even McKinnon. I talked about McKinnon, how I thought he was going to be an X factor for them now that he's healthy. He was great when he played. You get these guys, it makes it very tough, especially when you're trying to protect the corners.
With Andy Reid. Because, that first play was brilliant. Like, he's like, I'm going to call basically a wide receiver screen that everybody, it extends out, that pushes everybody up the field and get the first 20, 25 yards. Because if I get that, then I just need one pass, and I'll probably have 2 plays to make that one pass. Because he had a great kicker. Now, this is the same kicker that missed an extra point earlier in the game, missed a field goal earlier in the game. One of the great legs in all of pro football. But, it wasn't like, you were a little nervous about what was going to happen. But the other thing is Kelsey is just so dominant. And how you let Kelsey be the guy to get you there at the end. I mean, I get you're worried about Tyreek Hill. You're worried about – and the key to Kansas City – offensive surge second half of the season is they really developed Pringle, they really developed Hardeman, they added, as you mentioned, the additional running back, and that combination lifted everybody back to where they were. But it was Andy Reid coming up with that first great play right out of the gate, because with that, if that play doesn't work, you're at your 25-yard line with 8 seconds left. That play does work, whole ball game. All you need, one more play, boom, you almost knew Mahomes was going to get it. And then it goes to Kelsey, and then Kelsey knows how to turn it up and then get down. He doesn't make the mistake of continuing to try to run, which could have run out the clock. He knew I need to get as many yards as possible, then get down as soon as I see contact coming. And then they save their timeouts and hit the kick. And then
I want to talk about this really quick. This right here.
Yes.
This right here says so much, and I'm not going to play the audio from it because we'll probably get hit. No one in the NFL, but this right here just says so much about Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, but more so Patrick Mahomes. He's getting mobbed by his team, and his mindset is to go find Josh Allen and congratulate him. This is great. This is just awesome. So there's Mahomes being mobbed by his team. You can only imagine the emotions, that going through his head. But he's like.
A few seconds before, they'd showed Chris Jones on the sideline being head down like, oh, my God, we lost.
Yeah. And there he goes now. He's off to the races, and he's like, I got to go find Josh Allen, and I can't even imagine what it'd be like to run through that sea of people, and try to find him.
Drop his helmet. Yeah.
There it is right there. That's good shit right there, man. That is what it's all about. It
was crazy. And Josh Allen did everything he could. He played. He didn't play a perfect game, but he made every play when he had to. He did everything. And to lose that, it's rough. That's definitely tough. But I think it was Mike Golick Jr. potentially that made a statement that was like, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are this generation's Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. That's a hell of a statement to make before a game like this. It's a hell of a statement. He made it before this game.
Yeah.
And it certainly looks like, we might be in for something like that in the future.
Look at this. That's a completion.
Yeah.
Mahomes is insane, man.
You know what I hated?
That's the benefit of a baseball background. His dad played pro baseball, so that throw is as normal to him as a traditional football throw.
You know what I fucking hated was in the Rams game. I think it was Chris Collinsworth that was announcing. When Stafford did that, because Stafford, throw a little sidearm, a couple completions in that game. He said, a little Mahomesian. Fuck you, Chris Collinsworth. Matthew Stafford has literally been doing that since he entered the league. Matthew Stafford has
he
been
was doing that at
throwing from
Georgia.
different.
He's
been throwing from different arm angles, sidearm, even submarine a little sometimes. Shut your dumbass mouth, Chris Collinsworth. Mahomes, ain't the first guy to do that.
I do think that the league is in really good shape though, and this was a good weekend for the league to kind of showcase the future stars of the league. And it's
the
it's
league
good
did
stuff.
a better job getting away from the politics than the NBA.
They really did. They did a great job. That's not to say they've moved away from it completely. They haven't. You still saw there was cringeworthy commercials for the NFL. They still have like it takes us all, all that nonsense. But they have actively
football.
moved
Is it all about women's sports this, women's performance this, women's CEO that?
It's because so many of their players beat the fuck out of women. That's why. That's legitimately the reason why. Because 10 years ago, the narrative about the NFL was DUIs, consistently having domestic violence issues.
Yeah, Ray Rice's great right hook.
Exactly. And listen, she spit on him first on Team Ray Rice on that one. Just saying.
They went at him. He wasn't.
The railing knocked her out.
Abuser. That was more. That was mutual violence, is what that was.
That was bitches be crazy, and they were both drunk. But that was the narrative, and a lot of people criticized Roger Goodell a lot for some of the punishments that he handed down during those times. Ezekiel Elliott, didn't seem like there was a ton of evidence him, and he got suspended.
What about?
But that's
Tom
why
Brady?
all this stuff started.
Tom Brady getting his first ever personal conduct flag.
That was.
I get why he was agitated because his lip was busted.
He got hit in the chin. That
was
too much. But
the official pulled that flag fast. He did it a couple of times, but you don't. That was a sign of the changing of the times to some degree because to flag Tom Brady, was interesting. And I think also we saw a little bit of the home field has been shrinking because officials have been less favorable to home field teams. And we really saw that too. We didn't really see any big pro home field calls in any of the games. And credit to the refs. We didn't really have a lot of controversial calls either. But that's factoring into how the league is officiated shapes how much home field matters or doesn't matter. And it continues to shrink because they're really professionalizing officiating pretty well. There was a couple of there was a couple of close calls, but nothing really egregious that stood out, which was good to see.
Yeah. And that Brady one, he did get hit. He didn't get hit hard. He did get hit with the crown of the helmet to his helmet, technically. So maybe there should have been a flag. But yeah, the fact that Brady got flagged on that I found was strange.
It was his first one ever. His entire
first
career.
Unsportsmanlike conduct penalty ever, which is nuts.
Crazy.
But I will say Tom Brady made a statement during the week. He specifically made a statement during the week because someone asked him, do you feel like you get, favorable calls for roughing the passer? And he talked about how actually I get fewer roughing the passer calls than the rest of the league average. So I don't think I really get advantages there. What he did say was, I will say that when it comes to me arguing with officials or yelling at people, I feel like I do get away with that a little bit. He said that. And I think that may have played a factor in him getting that. But
wasn't it Hochuli Jr. that was the
that's the problem. I was just going to say that. That's one of the problems is Ed Hockley Jr.'s kid. Well, I don't know if it's Ed Hockley Jr., but Hockley's kid was in there. Ed Hockley, one of the worst officials of all time, constantly has to make it about himself. And his fucking dumbass kid, I think, was part of the problem there, pulling that flag. Also,
because that was a little fast. I was like, whoa.
Another flag.
I thought that. And then that was a reputational one on Sue too, because I didn't think Sue deserved the flag that he got.
No, he got kicked. I don't think it was intentional by Stafford, but he did get kicked in the nuts by Matthew Stafford. And for Ndamukong Suh, a guy who has been penalized for doing things like that before, to then get penalized after Stafford did that for simply saying, "Don't fucking do that. Don't fucking touch me. I saw you kick me." That's stupid. Now, we did see replay come into a penalty where Mike Evans took that shot to the head from Eric Weddle, fresh off the beach. Eric Weddle coming back and playing very well for the Rams. And it was microseconds between when the ball touched the ground and when he hit his helmet. And if that's a little bit reversed, that continues that drive with a first down after that personal foul. So that was a huge call that was very close to going the other way. Now,
yeah, the other crazy luck play was if you had the first half over, it looked to be a guarantee after Brady threw the pick. And Akers is driving in, and then in a kind of fluke play because he's going to hit his head on the ground, he fumbles right before the end of the half, and all the people who had the under bet cashed with that one play, which on the 1 yard line almost never happens. But
yes.
But all of the games were fantastic. Now I mean this week right now they're predicting Kansas City by 7 is favored by 7, I think, over Cincinnati. Total 54. They're 55. They're basically predicting Kansas City 31, Cincinnati 24. I think that underestimates Burrow and the Bengals, especially if Honey Badger's not back. I mean, Kansas City showed earlier in the season they have no defensive depth. They had to rig around their defense to get it back to playing well. You saw what happens when Honey Badger's not there. I mean, they get torched. And I mean, I think Chase torched them a couple of weeks ago when they were healthy. So I think that aspect they can play. Now 31 is high typically, but Kansas City, I think it has scored 31 or more in every single AFC title game and in almost every playoff game they've played with Mahomes. So that's why it's hard to say it's going to be less. And Cincinnati has some key defensive personnel, but not an elite defense by any stretch. So I think that, I think that spread might be a little high. Historically, spreads of 7 or more in the championship games, the favorite has won but not covered those games. That the sort of sweet spot has been between under 7, particularly between 3 and 6 or so. That's where favorites tend to cover a lot. So that's a little bit on the high side for the spread. I think the game will be closer and more competitive than that. And I think it's because kind of, Allen got a lot of hype this season. Mahomes has always, has deservedly got the reputation. But I think Burrow has still slid a little bit under that radar screen.
Yeah.
Even though he's Pro Football Focus's #1 rated quarterback on the season. If you look at him statistically, he had more 100-plus QB rated games than Mahomes did this season. He had more high proficiency passing games than Mahomes did this season. And he did it with a weaker offensive line than what Mahomes has in Kansas City, which they repaired after the Super Bowl debacle of last year. So now Mahomes is at home, and Kansas City historically has had a good home field advantage. But this will be their 4th consecutive AFC Championship game under Andy Reid. But and maybe Tyler will show up as a weak coach. Maybe the fact that this is only his 2nd ever road playoff game will show up for Burrow. But I think Cincinnati and Burrow are getting a little bit underrated in the AFC title game.
And they have nothing to lose. They're playing with house money. I don't think a lot of people expected the Bengals to be here. The Chiefs, again, their 4th AFC Championship game. If they lose this one, that does start to set a narrative around what's going on. It really does. So, yeah, I think it's a big one. And I think the Bengals have a really good chance to compete and potentially upset them. It'd be interesting to see. Now,
yeah, they're only given about a 26-27% chance on the money line. It's like plus 270,
and they just beat them. They just fucking beat them, which is crazy to me.
Several weeks ago, and they shut them down in the second half. It wasn't just a great offensive performance. The second half, Kansas City only put up 3 points. So they designed some things defensively that had some success. Now I think it's tough to sustain that against Kansas City, but I think they have that. But they have the capacity to hang in there. In particular, what Cincinnati's been good at is they just don't give up a lot of passing touchdowns. So they'll give up some yardage, they'll give up some plays, but I think their corners and their pressure guys are enough to keep hem in Kansas City. Kansas City put up 31 the first time, but 28 of that was in the first half. So I think Cincinnati can hang in there, and I hope it will be. I think it will be another good game. The league is so it's not like definitely not like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. There's just a lot more parity in the league, and we saw that this past weekend, and I think we'll see it again this week. Though the game everybody's excited about is San Francisco Rams because the Rams have lost, I think, something like 14 times, and whatever it is.
It's a lot.
They have not beat under McVay. The 49ers have been his nemesis. They swept them this year, including the critical game at the end of the year where they came back from a 17-point deficit at LA. But Garoppolo is going to have to play a lot better if they're going to beat this Rams team with the way this Rams team is playing.
Yeah, and I think that I think edge goes to the Rams. You know, we know Bosa's banged up. Even though he played well. Trent Williams limped off the field in the game against the Packers. George Kittle seemed banged up. Deebo Samuel potentially. I think he's got a rib. I think Deebo's got a rib. Based on how he was acting and what was happening when he inhaled. Now, will that last? Will that linger? Will it get worse over the week? It could with the swelling. So that's something to look for.
The question is, can you use a receiver the way they're using him? I mean, he's been very successful as this running back hybrid, but typically
he's a horse. He's a workhorse. They're working him way too hard.
Exactly. That usually backfires at some point. At some point, the injuries accumulate. So I just think they're just a little too banged up. I think it'll be a different Rams home crowd than it was at the end of the season. They're favored to win by 3.5 to 4, depending on the circumstance. They expect it to be low scoring because the 49ers last 2 games have gone under in the playoffs, about 26-20, 22, somewhere in that vicinity. I think that's a little bit low of a total. Now this past week, 2 games went over, 2 games went under. So it's sort of balanced out. But you usually, when you see statistics like we saw last week, the scores end up being higher scoring. They just didn't happen to be. I don't see the lower scoring trend continuing for the Niners into the Rams game. I think this game has the hallmarks of being even though both defenses feature some good talent. I think that this will be more of an offensive output game.
It's going to be good weather. Anytime you have a team like San Francisco that goes up to a snowy, incredibly cold, space, you're going to be questioning things. Maybe that's why they had some of the drops they had. Maybe, and especially when you got Jimmy Garoppolo, who when he has hand problems in the cold, that exacerbates grip problems. Especially if you have something wrong with a ligament or whatever. So
and then the ground was so slippery, receivers couldn't run routes.
Mm-hmm. So I think that I'm looking forward to that game. I think that when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he's a fairly average quarterback. I think he's played that out. But what he is a known quantity. Right. Kyle Shanahan's very familiar with him, had a lot of success with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think he does have a cool factor about him in terms of not just the fact that he dresses nice and fucks porn stars, but a cool factor in terms of when things go wrong, he's kind of just a statue. He just kind of very cool.
His mentality is very effective. He doesn't get rattled by bad plays. He takes chances. He's not afraid to take chances. Sometimes he should be, but but in the playoffs, that's usually what wins you games. That's what gets you there. Is more of a Favre mindset than a Rodgers mindset. And Garoppolo's definitely of that mindset, and then will go down fighting and tends to be good in the clutch. Like when there's a 3rd and 6 late in the game and you need to play, he makes that play. I've seen him do it all season and doing it, and especially in key games down the stretch of the season. So I think that. I think he'll be a gamer. I just don't think the 49ers. The 49ers defense has been, a little bit of smoke and mirrors. They've relied a lot on Bosa's pressure. The secondary has been shaky at times this season. They've got some injuries and they're banged up back there on top of that. I think that now their key has been they don't blitz Stafford at all because they understood how good he is against the blitz. And so they blitzed him less than any team all year. Things like 15, 16% in both games on snaps. Though they actually, when they do blitz, they end up being very successful because of how rare they blitz against Stafford, because that hurt them down the stretch of that game. So I think, one thing we do know is if Shanahan has a 24-point lead, the Rams can definitely still come back because this is the man who's managed to blow 2 big leads in critical playoff games, either as offensive coordinator or head coach. So we'll see how it plays out. But I like the Rams to pull it off. But I think it will be both games should be very, very good games. And we'll see what some coaches do because some coaches will prove. Andy Reid, we already know what he can do. I think how McVay does against Shanahan will be a very interesting matchup and may determine the outcome of the game.
Yeah, I think so. And that Rams offense is great. Sean McVay loves 11. He loves 11 formation. He loves 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 3 wide receivers, and they just rock and roll with that. And they can do so many things from that. Tyler Higbee is so good in terms of what they can do with him. Cam Akers back is a different look in terms of not just having Sony Michel back there. So I think the Rams are going to continue on. but we'll see.
I'm looking forward to seeing the Rams at home too. I'm looking forward to seeing that game at is it SoFi? Is that how you say it?
SoFi, yeah.
So I love watching them play there. And I think they're gonna have a lot of momentum. So I'm definitely gonna go with the Rams. Go ahead, Ryan. I know you got to catch up with super chats and everything.
Yeah, so we got one more thing I want to talk about. Then we're gonna hit super chats and we'll be out of here. But in terms of who's moving on. One person we don't really know the status of moving on to next year, and that's Tampa Bay's Tom Brady. And a lot of people were asking questions before the game yesterday after some comments he made speculating, is Tom Brady going to come back next season? I think a lot of us thought it was kind of a foregone conclusion that he would, but now he's starting to put some stuff out there that is definitely making people question things, especially if you're a Tampa Bay fan. Tom Brady talks about potential retirement decision. Now, he has the Let's Go podcast that he does. We have several quotes from him on this, and we're going to read through them all here. Rick Stroud puts all these out. Tom Brady on his Let's Go podcast about his wife and family in football. It pains her to see me get hit out there, and she deserves what she needs from me as a husband, and my kids deserve what they need from me as a dad. I said this a few years ago. It's what relationships are all about. It's not always what I want. It's what we want as a family. And I'm going to spend a lot of time with them and figure out the future and what's next. The team doesn't deserve anything less than my best. And I feel like if I'm not committed to that, or I can't play at a championship level, then you got to give someone else a chance to play. And we'll see. Playing football, I get so much joy from. I love it. But not playing football, there's a lot of joy in that for me also now too, with my kids getting older, seeing them develop and grow. So all these things need to be considered, and they will. Now, I think that's probably you guys' first time seeing all of that. Jeremy, what's your thoughts initially about these statements?
To me, I can't see him retiring off of the way that they lost that game. I just can't. I understand family's important, and it's just like anybody, family's important to anybody, but his legacy is also important to him. And I heard, I think Stephen A said this today because I was listening to some of their stuff on the YouTube channel, on the ESPN YouTube channel, but I agree with him. I think Brady needs to go into this final year or this next year and announce that it's his final year so he can be properly celebrated like the greats have been, because he's earned that. He deserves that. Give the team a heads up. That way there's no distraction about it. Everybody understands this is it right here. We have to all be a cohesive unit. We need to be committed to this is Brady's last year. Let's send him out on a high horse and call it a career. One more year for him. I think it's going to happen. Will he announce it? I don't know, but he probably should. But I can't see him retiring. I just can't. Obviously, he's putting that out there. Tom Brady's smart. He doesn't put anything out there that he doesn't want out there for a reason, So he's putting that out there because he wants people to talk about it. I mean, he is a professional athlete. Spoiler alert, professional athletes have egos, big time egos. You don't get to that level without having an ego. This is a guy who literally will not walk. He won't get out of the game. If they're up 45 to nothing, he still won't let the backup come in because he has an ego because it's his team.
Yeah.
So, Brady has an ego just like any other, top tier professional athlete. So he likes that he's still going to be relevant and in that discussion. So I think he returns next year for sure. I don't think he retires.
What about you, Robert?
I originally thought he would definitely play, but some of the way he talked towards the end of the season in the interviews he gave leading up to this game and in the interviews thereafter, he sounded like he had doubt. Now some of that with quarterbacks, they historically just suddenly drop off. They don't have like a steady decline. It's just all of a sudden it's gone. Mm-hmm. If there's any possibility he's feeling that's starting to happen at any level, and there weren't many signs of it this year. The last game was the only time you saw any sort of weak links there in terms of the possibility that, things might fade. But he's not the kind of guy that will play out the string if he doesn't think he's playing at the top level. He doesn't want anyone to ever see. I mean, I don't think he wants, even though Manning got to go out with a Super Bowl win, that last season was a tough, rough season for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he wants to ever have that kind of season where, he doesn't want to be carried off like Brett Favre was. And I think I don't think he's got that long to make the decision, because if you're the Bucs, the way things move, you don't want to be in Brett Favre, like with the Packers or with Favre. Maybe I'm coming back. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm coming back. Maybe I'm not. You want more certitude. And so I think if he thinks he can come back and win, and is not worried about any slippage, then I think he still comes back for one last season. And I agree, he should announce it in advance. Say, this is it. This is the last hurrah. And also to let Tampa know so they can plan accordingly. But it was always kind of a 3-year plan at Tampa. I don't think he thought he'd win the Super Bowl right away. I think he was giving himself 3 years to win a Super Bowl at Tampa. I think the fact that he won it that first year always, left a little bit in his mind of, I kind of achieved what I set out to achieve. That it was me, not Belichick.
Yes.
And that's it. And he's already kind of proven that back-to-back seasons. I mean, but yeah, I think the only way he doesn't come back is if he thinks he's slipping in ways that maybe others don't know, but he recognizes. Because it is weird how it is with quarterbacks. It's just sudden. That if you watch them statistically, like it was late last year with Roethlisberger, and that's why he only came back for one last year. But late 2/3 of the season, all of a sudden, old Ben was just not there anymore. The passes were just not crisp; they weren't coming out timely. He was slow. It's the mental decision making just goes a little bit slower, and physically the arm just loses that little bit of the edge. I didn't see a lot of signs of that in the game, so I don't unless he knows something we don't. I think he'll be back. If he's not back, I think it's because he didn't think he could have another great season come back.
I think that there's a couple things. I don't think it's really about physical. I think he may be in the best physical condition of his life, literally right now. He was first in yards and first in touchdowns this year. Even with injuries to some key players on that offense, he still led the league in yards and touchdowns at 44 years old, which is phenomenal. I think it's going to depend on what they can do with this team, the entire team. AB is now gone. I think Gronkowski comes back for another year if Tom Brady's there. But we saw them return, all the guys on that defense. It was tough. They had to make a deal with Shaq Barrett and Ndamukong Suh, Pierre Paul, all these guys. That's a lot of talent and a lot of money to figure out. I don't really know what their salary cap looks like. I don't know what their contracts look like. But the other side of that
should get back, but he might not be back till late.
And the other side of that is, do you want to retool that aging defense with some talent, but some age that has been injured this year? So I think that's the decision for Brady. It's what team does he think he can have around him? And does he want to come back for that? Because if he thinks they're going to return like not a talented team, he doesn't want his last year to be, 9-8. Right. That's what he doesn't want. So if he's confident about the team, I think he comes back regardless of everything he's saying about his family. I think he's willing to put off the family life one more year like he has for so long to come back for a chance to go out on top. I think Tom Brady's coming back.
And he needs to announce it. He needs to announce this is it. This is my final year. We're locked in. We're going to do this. That's what he needs to do.
Yep. I mean, Elway sort of set that tradition of trying to go out on top. Go out, and then Manning got to repeat that by his last game was winning the Super Bowl with his kids out there. So that's obviously, and Brady has said that's the way he wants to leave. Probably it's if he believes that he has a very good chance of winning a Super Bowl, he comes back. If for some reason he doesn't, then he probably hangs it up. Yeah. And what he probably joins the like Romo becomes probably a commentator is my guess.
I don't think so.
I don't see it, but I didn't see Romo doing it, and Romo's turned out to be like I love it when Tony Romo's announcement. I just can't see Brady doing it, but for the longest, I never would have saw Brady doing a lot of the memes and stuff he does of himself, and all that, years ago, like you would have never saw that side of him. So I really don't know, but I don't see it, but who knows?
It's what a lot of them are doing, but we'll see what happens with Tom Brady's future.
Maybe he'll go coach. Maybe he'll go coach the Patriots.
God damn that dude! Bob Kraft loves him. What if he convinces Bob Kraft to give him part ownership and he bosses Belichick around?
Oh my god!
I could see him wanting to be a part owner of a team. Like Manning has shown very little interest in coaching. He turned down the Monday Night Football contract. Now he did that special thing
He
with
does
his
that
brother
thing,
this year
yeah.
because that was something he could have fun with.
Peyton
Manning
should be a coach, owner, GM of a team because
Yeah.
he would be fantastic. Peyton Manning's football IQ is as high as anybody's has ever been. He's got that kind of personality that he can manage a team, but also he's got the money and the clout where he could have ownership as well. Like he can be an owner, GM, head coach.
I think that's too much to manage for one person.
It's probably, but still, I mean, even if you had a co-GM that actually did the day-to-day, but he was right there to kind of co-manage that, I think Peyton could pull that off. What team would that be? Because it clearly isn't going to be Indianapolis because Jim Irsay's not going to give.
He's literally trying to buy the Broncos right now, and they have a free head coaching position.
No, there you go then. So is he trying to buy the Broncos?
Yeah, he's part of it. There are multiple ownership bids on the Broncos right now.
Okay.
And the way it's working, because their owner died last year, I think.
Yeah.
And the way it works is it's not like the family can just choose, oh, well, we want to sell them to this. They have to take the highest bid. And it's the Manning family and some other big investors or whatever. They're one of the groups that are bidding. Another group is John Elway and some other business partners that are bidding. Okay. So they're not part of the same group.
I mean, we've
seen
be
interesting.
We've seen Peyton Manning coaching up those kids on SNL. That's what I want to see, where he just throws footballs at people's faces and cusses them out when they don't catch it. So.
I want to know if he'll if choking in the playoffs as a quarterback will transition to head coach as well for Peyton. That's what I'm interested in. That's a good comparison, Aaron Rodgers to Peyton Manning right there. If Aaron Rodgers plays another year and has just like a terrible fucking season, and Jordan Love comes in and plays better than Aaron Rodgers and gets them to the playoffs, and then Aaron Rodgers hobbles in there to hand the ball off a couple times, throw an interception, throw for 150 yards, and they win a Super Bowl against a dog shit Carolina Panthers team, then that's an appropriate comparison. Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning. But let's get to some of these. Chris Coran says Brady's the GOAT. Still love my Bucks. Fuck the Rams. Yeah, I know, Chris. Probably not a good one for you, man. I was looking forward to NFC Championship game at Tampa, but that's just how it goes.
Would have been
cool. Mexican Iron Man for 20. My 49ers making the NFC Championship. Woot, woot. So as not facing the GOAT, we're going to take the Rams for the third time this season. Hail Sports Wars. Love this channel. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mexican Iron Man. The artist formerly known as Woke Hogan for 5. It's pretty hilarious to see LaFleur in the Packers front office beg Rodgers to come back after drafting light-skinned Geno Smith. Yeah, Jordan Love looks to be a complete bust. And then Woke Hogan for another 5. Joe Burrow can easily end up like Andrew Luck. I agree. The Bengals GM better not be cheap when it comes to signing linemen this offseason. And they had the capability of doing that. A quarterback on their rookie contract is their best opportunity for people to win a Super Bowl. They're going to be able to spend money and get a lineman in the offseason because of so many young players on that team. So
and when you give up 9 sacks, set a record, you obviously, the whole world knows what you need to do.
Well, yeah. I do think it was a good move for them to get Jamar Chase on a lineman, which I don't know if a lot of people thought that during the draft, but that played out very well for them this year for sure. And I see somebody in the chat saying Peyton Manning beat my Bears. You're right. Peyton Manning did beat the Bears. Dog shit Rex Grossman. You should have played Kyle Orton.
Rex Grossman, the WVP, worst valuable player.
Rex Grossman's terrible. They should have been playing Kyle Orton instead of Rex Grossman. And it still took Charles Tillman slipping and falling on the wet Miami grass because it was fucking raining for Reggie Wayne to get wide open for a throw that Peyton Manning never would have made because the fucking pressure's on him. If there was anyone covering that, it wouldn't have fucking happened. Peyton Manning fucking sucks in the playoffs. Fuck Peyton Manning. Fuck the Colts.
Still beat the Bears.
Still beat the Bears.
That's what they needed. That's what they needed. Fucking pussy ass bitch. I fucking hate Peyton Manning. I loved when this fuck goes and picks his team, gets all these old good players, gets all these old good players to come around here.
It's not even a super chat. Can you at least get freaked out over a super chat?
No, that pissed me off. Peyton Manning goes to Denver, gets all these great playmakers to come and be part of his team. We're a super team, guys. I'm Peyton. Gets fucking annihilated by
like
Seattle,
this
like the bitch that he is.
I like this one. Ryan is still clinging to an 85 Bears before he was even born.
That's all we got. That's all we got. I don't give a fuck. That's what I'll cling to if I have to. Anyway, Peyton Manning, fucking choke artist. Gomer Kyle for 2.
Chicago Bears went out and got Aaron Rodgers.
That would be like, so I've heard this shit before about LeBron James coming to the Chicago Bulls, right? That's the kind of stuff. I hate LeBron James much more than I hate Aaron Rodgers. But I think they'd have to have it in the contract for him to become part owner somehow. That would be what would have to happen, because Aaron Rodgers already owns the Bears, according to him and Wikipedia. So I don't know. I don't want to root for Aaron Rodgers. So I don't want that. I will take losing again, or maintaining the status quo with 3 backup quarterbacks on the team than have Aaron Rodgers. Jason. Oh no, I missed this one. Gomer Kyle for 2.
Tebow. Bring Tebow.
I'll blow up Soldier Field. Gomer Kyle for 2 told you the Titans would choke, wasting Henry because of Tannehill. Tannehill under a lot of pressure from the Tennessee sports fans right now.
They are a top. Like, I do think that if you're looking at where Aaron Rodgers could benefit the most, it is Tennessee. Tennessee would be just be a would be
Julio Jones, AJ Brown, and a great running game with a great offensive line. So with a smart defensive coach. So no doubt about that. Tannehill right now needs to take a step up, or Titans need to find someone that can.
Yeah.
The problem is when Derrick Henry is not at full speed, and when he's not rocking and rolling, Tannehill's a liability.
And the big question is, I think Henry's uniquely built, but very few running backs last past 5-6 seasons.
Well, that's the whole thing. And hypothetically, if Rodgers is there, Henry doesn't need to run the ball 30 times a game. He doesn't need to run the ball 30 times a game, period. But if Rodgers is there, you make Henry your workhorse in the postseason, but not in the regular season. Just don't overwork him. You got Rodgers there. That's a perfect scenario for Aaron Rodgers. It really is, if that's what he wants. I don't know how the Vrabel dynamic works, but
yeah, that's
a
perfect scenario. Perfect scenario, I think.
Yeah, I think if Rodgers has enough talent around him, I think he's fine. It's when his problems with coaches usually correlate to the key talent he has around him or does not have him. I think he thought Randall Cobb might, still have some, but Cobb had nothing left in the tank, and that but that's what he wants, a number 2 receiving option that's top notch.
I think it has much more to do with
what Tom Brady got. He's like, Brady's got Godwin and Evans and Gronk and OJ Howard and and I got just Devontae Adams still.
Did OJ Howard catch a fucking pass this year?
He caught one in the playoffs.
He caught one yesterday.
He caught one. Like, OJ Howard has been.
He's disappeared, but
he was so good down there.
He was really
I think
good. That's Gronk. I think Gronk just takes all of his routes.
Yeah,
I guess, but you like. I mean, I like Cameron Brate, but you're telling me OJ Howard can't get time playing over Cameron Brate? Yeah, like it's very weird to me. Yeah, it's very weird, especially when Gronk. It's not like Gronk is full speed in the regular season. He sits out, takes a lot of plays off, and OJ Howard still was like not productive. So that's really
shockingly,
weird.
It's shocking.
Yeah. I guess Jameis Winston's just a better quarterback. That's the only conclusion we can make. Jason Gaines.
Speaking of places Rodgers could go, New Orleans.
We talked about Pittsburgh. We talked about Pittsburgh the other day with Roethlisberger leaving.
Yeah, but then you got the same kind of offensive coaching ineptitude and okay receivers. Peyton would be, I think, a great because then he goes
Payton,
to coach,
and playing in a dome with Sean Payton, and you're staying in the NFC.
Yep,
but you do have to play Brady.
Yeah. I mean, he's
I don't think he minds that. I think Rodgers competition never seemed to bother Rodgers so much. It's more stepping up. It's being willing to take risks in big games when he doesn't have confidence in his receiving options.
I don't think Aaron Rodgers cares a whole lot about football in comparison to how much we think he cares about football. Like, I see you,
John. I see you, John. Tebow has a winning record as a quarterback and even has a playoff win. He finished Heisman voting every year, won it as a sophomore, greatest college football player ever, national champion, NFL playoff victories, Heisman Trophy, college, high school player of the year, legend, Ryan. I want Tebow to go to the Bears, and I want him to make the Bears great again. That's
Joe Flacco has a 10-5 record in the playoffs and won a Super Bowl. That's completely unrelated to anything.
But Joe Flacco didn't get ran out of the league because he couldn't play.
Oh, he's about to.
Well, yeah, now. But he had an opportunity to fail on the field. Tim Tebow didn't have a chance to fail on the field.
I don't care. He would have failed on the field. It's doesn't even fucking matter. Hold on. I'm looking up Trent Dilfer's playoff record, but like no one's ever even looked for this, so it doesn't even pop up. Jesus Christ.
But Trent Dilfer didn't take over a team that had the worst record in the NFL.
Bro, Trent Dilfer's 5-1 in the playoffs. Trent Dilfer's the GOAT, bro. Let's bring him back.
That was back when defenses could really matter. That was one of the greatest defenses of all time, that Ravens defense. I mean, we saw a couple within a couple of years because the Tampa defense a few years later was equally exceptional. But we'll see. I mean, it'll be. What this weekend showed is the NFL's got 8 to 10 elite teams, elite caliber, Super Bowl caliber teams right now. And the only question is whether that, they add to that over the next year or two. I mean, if Tua develops at Miami, where does Deshaun Watson end up? Assuming he settles all of his lawsuits. I mean, he still put up
question.
But he's a quarterback that put up some elite stats a couple of years ago. So it would be I think we're heading to maybe one of the greatest eras of NFL parity in NFL football history, and not parity because teams have gone down, but because so many teams have gone up.
Yep. No, we can't. Me and Ryan can't argue about this right now because we got to wrap this up because I've got a premium stream to get to. So
and I don't want to either because it's a literally retarded argument to make. Like, Jesus Christ.
The worst thing that ever happened to Tim Tebow was Skip Bayless. That's the worst thing that ever happened to Tim Tebow. So,
no, the worst thing that ever happened to him was whoever taught him to throw like that in the first place. He made it work for a really long time, and congratulations to him. But he throws a fucking baseball the same way. Motherfucker, he swings a baseball bat the same way. Tim Tebow swings a baseball bat like he's throwing a fucking football. Like, it's slow as fuck. Like, every single Tim Tebow.
He was the second most efficient passer in NCAA history when he left college.
Urban Meyer's a great head coach. Urban Meyer's a great head coach.
And the most efficient.
He's had a lot of quarterbacks. He's had a lot of quarterbacks that played very well for him. So,
speaking of coaches, I think
none of them played Tebow. None of them played like Tebow.
The Tampa defensive coordinator getting a head coaching gig went bye-bye with that last play.
Oh, God.
Because he was one of the top 3 candidates at a bunch of places.
That was
the fucking dumbass Bears already interviewed his ass. Like,
the Bears. He'll go to the Bears. The Bears will get him.
Now I'm just gonna go ahead and assume maybe that's a Rooney Rule interview. Don't know. I'm not sure. I hope they don't hire Todd Bowles.
It's because at times he has been a very good defensive coach, no question. But that was not his
coordinator, man. Todd Bowles is a coordinator. Like, that's who he is. He's just one of those guys. He had a head coach chance. He doesn't have the personality. He doesn't have it. There's just some guys that aren't head coaches.
Like Mike McCarthy, who has proved once again.
And then also the guy from
that's Aaron Rodgers' credit. Rodgers kept saying McCarthy sucked, and he has McCarthy at the Cowboys. I mean, that was the most disappointing. I mean, they end up being one of the most penalized teams again. Poor game planning. I mean, when is Jerry Jones going to finally get over his wanting to take credit from Jimmy Johnson and actually hire a real coach?
He's going to die before that, to be honest, I think. He's just going to die like this. No, not another Super Bowl. Jason Gaines for 10. At the Greg, it's been a long 2 weeks for you. Are you on suicide watch with Brady and the Pats losing? You must be ducking Uche. I saw you make a super chat in the Sports Wars live stream yesterday. Thank you, Jason Gaines. He seems, he was really mad but I mean, he seems fine. Oh, shit. He's had to get a super chat here in a little bit. Then Jason Gaines for 5. I'm enjoying the playoffs. Pats lose. Cowboys choke. Brady loses. I hope Shanahan beats the Rams so he loses another Super Bowl. Hashtag retire Brady. Thank you, Jason. The Greg for 5. Does Andy Reid still want to change the overtime, petition the NFL like he did when he lost to the Pats 3 years ago? Fire Chip Kelly. UCLA will rise again. Thank you, the Greg.
He really hates Chip Kelly. He
does, except when it's fine. Like Connor Akers for 2. Stat Ryan. Oh, Matt Ryan. Stat Ryan has multi-possession lead phobia, probably. Then Connor for another 2 to add context. Stat Ryan is how I call Matt Ryan. Fair enough. Rob's Rules for 2. All these great Geeks and Gamers members and no fishing videos. Yeah, I don't know when the fuck that's gonna happen. Just to be honest.
I take on too many projects. I take on.
You got to have Viva do a cameo fishing video.
There we go. Hey, yeah, that'll take the heat off of me because
he needs to do another drone fishing video.
I don't know if you know, we have it's still early on in development. We're trying to start an outdoor channel for Geeks and Gamers. I've already got a guy that I know that's been fishing for a long time, a deep sea fisherman. He lives in Tampa, that is already ready to do some deep water, underwater diving. It's a certified diver. Ryan's got a buddy who's into hunting. We've already tried to line all this up, but it's
been kind of on the back burner. We got a lot of other things we're prioritizing ahead of that. So hopefully that'll come around one day. But Chris Coran for 5. Brady better be back. I already paid for next season's tickets. Yeah. Rob's Rules for 2. Ryan, Justin Fields is good. Be patient. I think that you cannot put Justin Fields in a traditional offense and expect him to succeed. It'd be like putting Tom Brady in the offense they use for Lamar Jackson. Just doesn't fucking work. So they need to make a decision with whatever coach and GM comes in there. Are you willing to model your entire team and offense, including all the players you decide to get, kind of the same way the Ravens did, around that type of scheme? Or do you not want to? You have something more traditional? You got to make that decision. I don't think you can force a round peg into a square hole. I think that Justin Fields is a round peg, but you need to build around him if that's what you want to do. That's a decision that needs to be made. I think he can be successful, but in the right way.
An offensively creative coach. I mean, they thought they were getting that with someone off the tree. But they need someone who's more of the real deal, I think, because now, and maybe they could go the popularity of the Rams offense, go with a power run offense with a lot of bootlegs, because Fields probably would do well in parts of that offense, the Shanahan style offense as well. But I just think there's limits. I mean, Fields couldn't make it at Georgia. He fit the Ohio State unique offense. That's a college offense, not an NFL offense, really. At least in the way in which he played it for the most part. Northwestern took him apart defensively. I had doubts about Fields coming in. I thought he was more of a gamble. I mean, this excitement over trying to find another Lamar Jackson and trying to go another Josh Allen. And we saw that with Justin Love. We saw that with the drafting Nance. We saw it in San Francisco. We see it now with Fields. Most of those guys don't turn out. You're better off with a more traditional pro style quarterback in the modern NFL. There's just even the guys that last get beat up too much that play that style. And Lamar Jackson got hurt again, of course, this year. So and he's the best at that kind of unique style. So
Ravens didn't have too big of a drop off when he did.
No, they
were still pretty competitive because
that could be credit to both Tyler Huntley and I think Harbaugh is the offensive genius there. He's a coaching genius. I mean, he's a guy that, we won a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. I mean, what else do you need to say? Now, you could argue for whether Peterson gets another shot. I mean, the guy did win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles.
I think there's a chance he goes to Chicago. I think Doug Peterson's kind of the right kind of temperament for a Chicago coach. So we'll see what happens there. But no idea what those fucking idiots are going to do. Blunt objections for 5. I'm playing Madden in vintage playoff mode right now with Rodgers and the Packers versus Manning and the Colts. Game is tied 0-0 in overtime. Nice. They're both choking. Shocking. Richard Simmons for 2. I modeled my throwing technique after Tim Tebow, says Richard Simmons. Thank you, Richard Simmons. Appreciate that.
Deserve this disrespect.
I believe that is, yes, that's going to be it, guys. Thank you very much for being here. Next week is going to be a great championship weekend. I think, well, championship Sunday, really. But it was awesome. Robert, what do you got going on at sportspicks.locals.com?
Yeah, so we had, the barely eked out a profit this thanks to all the individual player prop games because the props went over, but the totals got wacky in the first two games. But the Chiefs came back because Josh Allen can't win a coin toss. He choked at a key moment. He should have called it the other side. But that was fun to watch. But I'll have more picks up, a bunch of player prop picks, probably some totals and sides as well. The way it can be fun and people can bet small amounts, but the player prop, there's so many player props available now for these big playoff games that that can be an added bonus to enjoy the game. It's Hunter Thompson style. He used to bet a quarter per play back in the 70s at his home when he was in San Francisco and then when he was up in Aspen, so that every play, everybody had a little bit of cash in the game just to have some fun with the game. So we'll be doing that. I'll be doing a preview video for the AFC title game and the NFC title game later this week.
There you go. Hell yeah. Jeremy, what do we got going on?
I'll be live in about an hour and 20 minutes for geeksgamers.com premium members. So make sure you guys, if you have not, consider subscribing to the website. And if you do, we can give you a role on our Discord for premium members. You can talk to us in there. We'll be live playing some Mario Kart. Dan Vask will be with us along with Chris Sanova. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be cussing and yelling because that's what we do. Other than that, thank you guys. It's been a fantastic week for Geeks and Gamers, and only going to continue to go up from here. So thank you guys. Great stream. Thanks for Robert for being here as always. And Tim Tebow should be back in the NFL by next year.
Fuck that. But thank you. Appreciate that. I saw someone in the chat say something about you sent me an email about my website. If you could make sure it's the right one, rtkinel@gmail.com, because I don't see it right now. But thank you for reaching out. Please reach out again. Also, to whoever asked on the stream on Sunday, should I take the over on Patrick Mahomes rushing yards? You're welcome. I also had a profit in my sports betting because I told you to definitely take the over, and he had like 60 yards rushing. Thanks for being here,
22
everybody.
yards. It started out that profit at 20. I was like, that's a joke. He ran like 50 plus yards against him, even in the bad game earlier in the year.
It's 2 times that he escapes. That's it. 2 times that he escapes and gets a first down. But thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you later.